Have you ever wondered what Team Fortress 2 would be like without its most important defining mechanic? You know, that game mechanic we all interact with daily. You know the one, wave drifting? Alright, fine, you caught me. You caught me, okay? The whole video, the whole thing's a sham. This isn't even fresh gameplay. I've had this stored in my fridge for months. This isn't even actually Team Fortress 2. It's poorly done Gmod. And you know what? I'll admit it, Bin Laden's not even my audio guy. Yeah, I said it. You can't even do audio from the bottom of the ocean. But you know what? Even if you found me out, you're not going to fix the problem. You're not going to change the fact that Team Fortress 2 is still a hard game to make up topics for. I mean, what are you going to do with this game anymore? Valve is too busy making CSGO 2. There's no updates in sight, and Valve has taken the dick rating reward off of their Patreon. So what do you expect me to do? Like, yeah, you could do weapon reviews or something, but everybody has already reviewed every weapon. You could review maps, but TF2 players only want to play on one map. You could make another video about Sniper, but I would rather kill mice. If you like it, that's fine. It's just not my style. But luckily for me, there is one topic I can use. One topic that can be mined for nearly infinite YouTube coin. You know the one I'm talking about. Random Kritz. Yes, one of the most controversial topics in Team Fortress 2's history. Everyone has an opinion on it, and it's an exceptionally deep topic with no right or wrong answer, except for the very clearly wrong answer of liking them. But I don't want to bring up the exhausted debates of whether or not random crits are good. They're not, they're stupid, and a poor implementation of an actually good idea. If you listen to developer commentary, or read some of the old dev blogs about this game, or watch a YouTube video where somebody does all the work for you, you'll know that random crits weren't just there so that new players could get kills on experienced players that they otherwise wouldn't have a chance against. They were actually added to help influence players' macro decision making and to communicate certain things to them subconsciously, alleviating one of the greatest problems with Team Fortress 2 and any FPS game. The fact that girls keep saying to me, "Go away, I'm calling the police," when I tell them I play it. In an FPS game, when you've killed one or more members of the enemy team, it's extremely common practice to push against their position with your greater numbers. This makes fairly easy sense and has been a tactic in gaming and also war since the Battle of Jontron's Ridge in 2005 BCE. You have more people now that a few of the enemy are dead, meaning that your team has overwhelming force to be able to take the objective or raid whatever area they're hunkered down in and score more kills and therefore get more points to win with. Team Fortress 2 is no different. If your demo man kills 3 people with a sticky, then it's probably a good idea to push up against them with no, not like that! With your newfound advantage. You have 12 people, they now have 9, therefore you have more bullets. Now, of course, in practice, your team will be too busy talking about which Pokemon they want to have non-consensual sex with while spinning in a corner, but if they actually did pay attention to what was happening, they'd join you in your assault. TF2 takes this a step further by providing a lot of landmark moments or mechanics that can be used to break the stalemate outside of just getting kills. For example, popping Uber, destroying the sentry, or popping a banner. And TF2 does this very well. Uber is a very well communicated moment that players will have to deal with, and its strength, in addition to how long it takes to build, make it a landmark strategy in all forms of TF2. Whether you're the last surviving vocal cord in Banny's throat, shut the fuck up, or someone who just installed the game after drooling over Buff Medic for 2 hours. Regardless of your skill level, Uber is an extremely well-made stalemate busting mechanic. Making someone invincible is a very easily understood way of making them capable of breaking down a fortified base. You literally can't take damage, so walk at the enemy and deal as much damage to them as you can before losing Uber. Uber is often how teams of poorly coordinated pub goobers will actually be able to dismantle an enemy's defense or stall their overwhelming push and re-establish themselves. And to help reinforce the idea that players should capitalize off of Uber, or really any of the other things we discussed here, a stab chain, a pick on an important enemy, a call for med down, a basic kill streak, random crits were added to the game. If you don't know random crits, which is random like slot machines, not oh shit, wait, is that a slot machine? I fucking love gambling. Yo, give me like $5. No, it's fine. I'll be very responsible. It'll be alright. It's a lot of fun. Happen more often for players that are doing well. This subconsciously tries to influence you to be more aggressive after you've done something that warrants further aggression. You kill people by doing damage, therefore giving you a higher chance of getting more crits, which you use to kill people. It's like urinating. Your bladder is full, so you pee, so now you have a drink, so your bladder is full. However, crits kind of only work on paper. The idea isn't bad. Having mechanics like this is nothing new to shooters or games in general. These are called feedback loops. Specifically, crits are a positive feedback loop because they are positively infuriating. This is of course not something Team Fortress 2 invented, and minigames both before it and after it have had similar systems. For example, in Overwatch with ultimates, in Quake with the stack, or in Halo with power weapons. Win more mechanics like this have been around for a long time. And while the concept isn't bad, TF2's particular implementation of it is where the flaws of crits come in. And of course, this is the part of the video where I talk about random crits being bad because they're random. But here's the thing, I don't think that's actually the whole story. I don't think random crits are just bad because they're random, I think they're bad because they're random and they're also crits. Now, this is easily broken down into two parts. As you can see, it's two words, and we'll start off with the random one, but I don't really want to reiterate what a lot of people have already talked about. Everybody knows what's wrong with random crits, and even if you don't, you've probably felt what's wrong with them just by getting hit by them. Because they're random, obviously there's no communication or predictability when they're going to happen. Therefore, there's no real skill to using them, and they allow for much weaker players to win fights for basically no reason. The only reason people really like them is because they're big, they're loud, and sometimes they allow you to rob the enemy team of a bunch of fights that they should have won. However, that issue has been done to death. And I don't really want to talk about necessarily just the random aspect of random crits, because anybody could do that, but more so I want to talk about why random crits simply don't fulfill their job as a mechanic that incentivizes players to take advantage of their winnings, and I'd rather talk about other options that actually do succeed at this and are much more fun. Now, the intention behind random crits was very clear. In dev blog number 73, Robin Walker clearly stated, quote, "I wanted to make a game that teaches children that shooting at each other with guns is really fun. I was thinking about maybe moving to Africa, and if I do, I want to be able to easily recruit enough children to make my own warband." And for the most part, Valve succeeded at this, just not with random crits. The thing about random crits is, again, that they're random. They don't correctly influence players to be able to take advantage of their success, because you can't be convinced that you're actually going to get them. You might get a couple of kills after a big push and then have a higher chance to get random crits, and maybe you'll actually get them, or maybe you won't. It was also not that uncommon for players who were losing and just respawned to also get random crits, which works inversely to how the system is supposed to operate. It's like the police system. On paper, they're supposed to protect the American people from criminals. In practice, they flashbang your cat. And the thing is that it's honestly a good thing that random crits didn't actually work out the way they were supposed to, because if they did, the game would suck even more. If the game successfully rewarded random crits, or just crits in general, to players who were winning, they would consistently snowball all over the enemy team and probably not be stoppable, which would suck if your team ever started losing at all. So if random crits suck because they're random, what's the solution? Well, the solution is Uber, or even more poignantly, the Soldiers' Banners / Ultimates from Overwatch. Ultimates in Overwatch, the banners, and Uber all work kinda the same way. This was in fact a mechanic Overwatch took from TF2, and no other game ever. You deal damage or heal people, or in Overwatch's case, take damage to fill up a meter. If you can survive long enough and you actually fill that meter up, you can then activate a powerful ability, one that rewards you for having survived and having dealt enough damage to the enemy team. Banners, much like crits, reward you for dealing damage to the enemy team, by either giving you a powerful ability that you can use to take advantage of a downed enemy or a push from your team, or by giving you an ability that you can use to crack a stalemate. Banners and ultimates are better than crits for basically two reasons. They're not random, and they're not crits. And here's kind of the hotter take part of this video, crits are just boring. Crits are simply a damage modifier on top of actions that you're already performing. They have no unique skills or abilities or functions of their own, and just simply parasitically attach themselves onto what you're already doing. They don't take any unique or additional skills, and have no unique or additional use cases. The only possible argument for how crits change your behavior is that when you know you have them, you might be slightly more stressed to perform well so that you don't waste them. You may also be more brazen in taking fights that you know you can win because you have more damage, or you might be more worried about certain fights that you don't know if you can win so that you don't lose them. Aside from that, there's no skills that you aren't already employing. Yeah, crits make it so you want to aim good, but that's how you should be playing Team Fortress 2 at all times. Assuming, of course, you're trying to win and not just sit in a corner and spam racist remarks in the voice chat. This is, of course, unlike ultimates in pretty much any game that has them, or even stuff, again, like banners in Team Fortress 2. Ultimates have their own functions, their own, for lack of a better term, abilities. They have their own use cases and their own strengths, and they bring something unique to the game. They're something that you can get good at, and using them correctly is a matter of skill. And while many people, myself included, may not agree with Blizzard's design on these things in most cases, for example, it's kind of weird that Reaper's Ultimate deals plus 25% damage to white characters, but still, I think that most people would agree that abilities that are used intentionally, ones that not just require skill, but showcase your particular skills, and allow you to express how you want to play certain games, are far more interesting. Player expression is honestly one of the coolest parts of games for me. I like seeing exactly how people use certain tools, knowing what makes them uniquely good at certain games. And that's just not something you get with random crits. This is one of my favorite parts of fighting games, even though I don't really play them anymore. The ability for two different people to play the same character in drastically, fundamentally different ways to showcase their personal skills. This is something that Team Fortress 2 players also enjoy even if they don't know it, because one of the greatest advantages this game has over any of its competition, and one of the most beloved parts of it, are the fact that we can make basically whatever loadout we want from a huge list of creative options. And this is something that Ultimates and Ubers do that crits do not. Creative gameplay is one of the greatest strengths of Team Fortress 2. It's one of the reasons we're all playing this game. The ability to do stupid stuff with cool weapons, in an environment that's very subtly competitively deep. But crits don't align with this philosophy. What creativity is there to crits? There isn't, that's the point. Crits actively take what would otherwise be a really cool fight and choke it of any room to breathe. It's hard to have an interesting interaction when everybody gets one shot. And look, I get it. It's enjoyable to get the crits. It feels great to kill like 5 people with one pill. But for most people, it feels way worse when you're the recipient, and just cause it feels good doesn't mean it makes the game any better. Like, if they sold a device that would stomp on your balls every time you got a kill, would that really make the game any better? Okay, fine, bad example. If objective-based game modes randomly awarded the victory to the team that had the most kills rather than the one that scored the objective, somehow, would that make the game any better? No. In fact, crits also have another problem. They're completely bullshit. They're so ridiculously powerful that they take certain skills pretty much out of the game. Team Fortress 2 is an incredibly well-balanced game, because in most cases, especially towards the release of the game, Valve did an incredible job of making it so that all of these different characters with different weapons and different amounts of health could interact in ways that are fair and interesting. To do so, they had to make it so that Team Fortress 2 was very specifically balanced, and no game that is as balanced as Team Fortress 2 can survive a mechanic that gives you a 3 times damage multiplier. This isn't a JRPG, it's actually fun, and in your character-based shooter game, where certain characters' entire strengths are has the most health and has the most mobility, then maybe you shouldn't have a mechanic that makes it so that enemies can deal 3 times damage to them with no damage fall off, meaning that the big man gets 1 shot or 2 shot by a lot of weapons, therefore overriding one of his only strengths and his entire character design, and making it so that if Scout gets so much as scraped by an explosive, or hit by what would normally not be enough to kill him, you know, like partially hit shotgun shots, something that might come about because he's dodging really well, they both just lose, invalidating one of the only reasons they're even a character. And look, I understand that it's really funny and awesome to get random crits. I mean, who doesn't like just winning a fight for no reason? But for a lot of you thigh-high wearing hillbillies, you don't really like crits the moment they're used against you. And like I said earlier, crits also take out certain skills from the game. By multiplying the damage 3 times, you make it so that shots that otherwise wouldn't kill people, like in the Scout example, now do, meaning that aim, an important part of any shooter game, no longer matters as much to score a kill. And again, like the Scout example, also makes movement less important because things that normally wouldn't kill you now kill you. And this mechanic has to be dealt with frequently. And I know that because there's a lot of guns in this game that give you crits, and a lot of them are not necessarily beloved. The Kritzkrieg, the Flog, the Diamondback, the Frontier Justice, technically the Bushwalker, Sniper, the Ambassador, and some other ones. Now, for some of these weapons, and I mean some of them, the crits actually aren't that bad, and they are used as a way to effectively reward an otherwise unoptimal playstyle. For example, Sniper. For example, the Market Gardener, one of the few instances where crits are actually well done because the playstyle, or rather the delivery method, was actually designed with their strength in mind. Same with the Kritzkrieg, or something like the Diamondback, which rewards you with crits for getting backstabs, one of the least optimal ways to play Spy. But of course, all of this is sarcasm, and many of the weapons that reward crits don't really have much of a requirement to get them. Like, for example, the Frontier Justice, a weapon that rewards you with failing to protect your sentry with crits, which is weird because normally I think you're just supposed to get a broken sentry, not even mentioning the Diamondback, or something like the shields where getting crits is really easy, or something like the Phlogistinator, which alone is relatively balanced, but in combination with other weapons like the Scorch Shot becomes a real pain in the ass. Which is funny because the Scorch Shot utilizes a different mechanic that's like crits but better. Mini crits. The exact same mechanic, but better. Now of course mini crits are still an extremely powerful mechanic. So powerful it can eat an entire large pizza on its own. The difference between these two being that mini crits are small. And instead of being able to one-shot every class in the game, they simply give you a not to be sneezed at 35% damage increase. Which of course is a lot, but at least if you get into a fight with somebody with mini crits you have the slightest possibility of winning. Unlike of course with crits where even if you're a good player you have no chance of winning against even the lowest skilled player, also known as YouTubers. So, what is the solution? Is it to all play Hunt Showdown with Kaluka because he's very lonely and wants more friends to play video games with? Yes. But no, the solution is something we've already been doing. Just turn the fucking things off, and maybe don't reward them so easily. Like typically in an FPS game, a critical hit is rewarded for doing something hard, hitting a weak spot or a headshot more commonly. And while I don't think that Team Fortress 2 needs more headshot weapons, not that I think we'll get any, I do think that a lot of weapons reward these crits way too easily. I'm glad Team Fortress 2 is willing to reward these for doing something weird. That's kind of the whole thing with Team Fortress 2. It's weird, it's creative, and it plays with all of its mechanics in a way that a lot of other games just don't. But crits are so powerful that you have to be really delicate with how you reward them. And honestly, there's very few weapons that do this very well. Some of the worst offenders in Team Fortress 2 are weapons that reward crits, for good reason. And I kinda wish crits had come with more of a requirement for skill. Annoyingly, guns like the Ambassador, which are actually hard to use, were nerfed out of being able to deliver meaningful crits, but guns like the Diamondback, which are not, were allowed to keep theirs. It's just weird what Valve considered to be an acceptable cost to get crits. The Flog did this very well by taking away one of Pyro's most important mechanics, but then they just let you build oomph with your secondary anyway, so it's a moot point. Losing 3 of your shots on the Frontier Justice's magazine sucks, but when every one of your shots is now worth 3 times as much, it's really not that bad. I don't necessarily think that crits should just be a test of how good you are at aiming, because look how well this went, even though that is one of the most respected skills in FPS games, because I wouldn't want to harm TF2's imagination, or limit it creatively, which again is the best part of Team Fortress 2 for me. I don't like crits, they're kinda stupid, but I do like the fact that Team Fortress 2 was willing to try something like this. I know everybody knows this, but FPS games have been in a creative rut for like 15 years. Call of Duty was the worst thing that's ever happened to this genre. There have been a lot of FPS games recently, but no matter how different a lot of them get, a lot of them boil down to not moving when you're shooting, aiming down sights, and tracking people with automatic weapons. TF2 is decidedly not that. It does stupid shit like crits, and even when it doesn't always work out, I'm glad it at least tried. This is one of the most disappointing parts of Overwatch for me, other than the fact that it's Overwatch, was that Overwatch didn't really tap into the creativity that made TF2 so cool. It did things that were inspired by Team Fortress 2, but it missed kind of the point. But even so, Overwatch doesn't really get enough credit for being a breath of fresh air in this genre, though that's becoming less true as it develops. Crits are kind of like all of the weapons that give you crits. They are really stupid, but they are cool to use. And at the very least, TF2 tried something weird with them, but still put them in the trash.